Hey, this is Nathas, and I am going to be opening a Solforge Fusion Alpha Booster Kit. So, I have a sealed Alpha Booster Kit here. This is first edition from Set 1. So basically what this includes is one Aloyan, one Necrom, one Tempest, and one Utera faction deck, as well as 4 minion cards. So, let's get this open and see what we get. And something that's really exciting is that next week, Set 2 comes out as well. So there'll be a lot more cards to see and a lot more things to play. So the meta is going to change a ton. So I think it's going to be a really exciting time for the game. So here are the 4 decks, and let's open them. I guess I'll start with the Aloyan. So I'll move these to the side and see what we get. All right. We're going to start with an Aegis Wings, an Armored Virtuoso, Bright Steel Sentinel, Combat Justicar, Electronet, Forge Plate Yeti, Heavy Artillery, Orion Battle Droid, Spirit Forge Sentinel, Stout Prophet. And then our Forgeborn is a Steel Rosetta with Enhance at level 2, Repurpose at level 3, and Inspire at level 4. So just to kind of see what we got in one grouping. Alright, so this deck has a couple opportunities to play stuff for free with Electronet and Aegis Wings. There are a few cards with armor, including the Battle Droid, the Armored Virtuoso, and the Forge Plate Yeti, which does damage with armor. So there's a couple little things of synergy here, plus the Bright Steel gives all of your robots armor as well. You got a little bit of stealth, but this deck seems to be a little bit more of a support for something, unless you have something that synergizes really well with armor. But having free Electronet and free Aegis Wings could help a lot with a deck where spells matter. So... And, all right, on to the next one. On to Tempest. All right, so let's start with an Arrogant Warstoker, Blizzard Shaman, Disintegrate, Everflame Phoenix, Firestorm, Raging Giant, Stampeding Warhound, Steadfast Lasher, Stone Skin, Unstable Razortooth, and our Forgeborn is a Sunder. So we've got a Stimbolt at level 2, a Summon the Swarm at level 3, and an Ice Armor at level 4. So this is an interesting one. There's a lot of removal and a lot of things that synergize very well. All right, so this deck has both Firestorm and Blizzard Shaman. So they both have the ability to do spray damage along the board to remove a lot of creatures all at once. Now, the Unstable Razortooth can be really cool with a card like that because when it loses life, you deal damage to each enemy creature. So you can basically, if you have an Unstable Razortooth out, you can deal damage to it with the Blizzard Shaman, deal damage to it with the Firestorm, and then everything else will take extra damage on your opponent's side because it had lost life. The Stone Skin is another great card with Unstable Razortooth because you can give it power and have it battle. Disintegrate is great removal for anything that your opponent plays that turn. The Steadfast Lasher lets you deal damage when you deploy it, as well as the Stampeding Warhound. If it replaces a creature, you get to deal damage. There's a couple creatures with aggressive, including your Everflame Phoenix and your Raging Giant. And then there's just a lot of larger creatures with breakthrough, like the Stampeding Warhound has breakthrough as well. So the turn that it removes something and replaces and deals damage, it can also break through. So this is a very aggressive deck that I think I'm going to have a good time pairing with something else. And it can really do a great job keeping your opponent's creatures at bay. All right, next we'll look at our Necrom deck. All right, we'll start with a Broodfang, Dr. Frankenbaum, Dreadbolt, Gloom Reaper Hag, Grave Pact, Necrotic Apparition, Spite Hydra, Steadfast Fiend, Steadfast Skeleton, Scythian Dreadmaw, and then let's look at our Forgeborn. This is a Nyx Necria, so it's got Soul Rip level 2, Raising Dead level 3, and Dark Summoning level 4. All right, so this deck has some interesting pieces of removal that also has some interesting synergies with Broodfang. So Broodfang, whenever one of your creatures is destroyed, you can remove or give one of your opponent's creatures minus attack and health equal to whichever level you have. So there's a couple things that let you destroy your own creatures in this deck, including the Necrotic Apparition, the Zithian Dreadmaw, as well as the Grave Pact. Now there's a couple cards here where if something was destroyed, there's a couple other good synergies with it. So the Fiend, if it's destroyed, it can give one of your creatures plus attack plus health. Your Gloom Reaper Hag, if it's destroyed, can deal damage directly to your opponent and gain you life. Dreadbolt's one of the best removals in the game, even though it's level gated. So at level 1, you can only destroy a level 1 creature. The fact that it still is just straight up destroy can be really strong if you could keep it upgraded on the Forge or on the cycles. And then Frankenbaum is a great card where if you can remove one of your opponent's creatures with it, you can either get minions or take their creature at level 3. So there's a lot of really interesting synergy here that has to do a lot with destruction, and then there's a lot of cards that benefit off of it. Plus, if your Necrotic Apparition is destroyed, you get a zombie as well, depending on what level you are, whichever zombie you get. So you can use your Zithian Dreadmaw to destroy a Necrotic Apparition, to get a minion, which then lets you use your Broodfang to destroy something. So there's a lot of really cool things you could be doing in this deck where you could have some crazy turns. So this will be fun. All right. Then we got one more. We're going to end with Utera. So we've got a Dendrify, a Druid's Chant, an Asperian Steelplate, a Glowhive Siren, a Grove Mother, a Roaring Batterhide, Shroudthorn Splicer, a Soothing Bear, a Pterodon Mauler, and a Vine Lash. Now let's go to the Forgeborn, which is a Nova. So we've got Nova's Might. We got Nova's Might at level 2, Nova's Touch at level 3, and Nova's Dominion at level 4. So finally, let's just take a quick look at this deck. All right, so this deck definitely also has some cool synergies and like cool little interactions. That'll be cool to see. So first of all, Grove Mother, whenever it's replaced, you can either get minions at lower levels or reanimates at higher levels. So there's quite a few cards in here that care about replacement. Specifically, Pterodon Mauler, if it replaces a creature, it gets aggressive breakthrough, and it gets additional attack. So the turn you play it, it's most likely going to deal damage unless your opponent can remove it. And then whenever it deals damage, you're going to buff one of your creatures. So that could be a really strong interaction. Your Asperian Steelplate, if it replaces a creature, you can give your creatures a buff. If the level 1, it gives itself. At level 2, it gives itself an adjacent. Your Glowhive Siren, when you gain life, like Glowhive is always great because you're going to gain life from other cards as well, such as your Soothing Bear or your Druid's Chant, and then every time you gain life, it gets a different attack. So there's a few cards that could target or trigger your Glowhive Siren, which is really nice. You've got a Roaring Batterhide, which could silence one of your opponent's creatures, so it gives it Defender and loses its abilities. Plus, this one actually lets you buff one of your creatures as well. Shroudthorn Splicer is another card that you may replace another one of your creatures with an Oakfather. So you can basically Shroudthorn, replace your Grove Mother, you get it back if you have level 3, and then you get an Oakfather. So there's some really cool synergies there. And then finally, Dendrify is another card that lets you replace creatures with Oakfathers, so that can kind of help out with some of these replacement synergies and some of these cards that want to be replaced, like Grove Mother. And there's a new card called Nova Elementalist in the new set, which creates a card called Rumblespark Elemental, which then transforms to basically be a creature that's very hard to remove. Whenever it dies, it transforms back into an Exalt. So Dendrify is one of the only cards that could remove it earlier than the 3rd cycle and actually remove it, because you could replace that with an Oakfather, which is cool. So there's some great cards in here that I think will be interesting in the right pairing. So those are the 4 decks from the Alpha Booster Kit, and thank you for tuning in.